You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Welcome to the Irish NFL Show on the Believe Network in association with QuinnBet. Well, we hope you all had an enjoyable NFL draft. It's that beautiful part of the off-season now where we can all get carried away with the idea that the sixth-round wide receiver our team's picked will be the next Justin Jefferson, or that our team has cracked the code and will transform its prospects come September. We spent a very enjoyable Thursday night and early Friday morning at the Arlington Hotel, and thanks to Kieran, Casey, Mariana, and all the team there for looking after us so well. We're also very happy to announce, incidentally, that we've renewed our partnership with the Arlington for the season ahead, and very much looking forward to working with them throughout the 2026 season. Well, with the picks in and most of the dust now settled, we're looking back on some of our highlights from the draft. Brian O'Leary, Kieran Boyle, and Craig Rignan with me, Conor Brophy, to look back over the first of all of our favourites, starting at least with all of our favourite stories from the draft. Brian, what was your favourite pick or your favourite draft story of the night?
Conor, I'm going to give a lot of love to the Cleveland Browns because they don't tend to get a lot of love on this show, and they certainly don't tend to get a lot.
Spoiler alert: they're going to get a little bit more because I've picked them for another segment.
Oh, okay, even more interesting. We're doubling down tonight. They don't get much love from many people in the NFL public domain, but you got to be impressed with Andrew Berry on the strategy behind the draft here tonight. Bearing in mind, there's so many holes in the team. We spoke about it in the AFC North preview. They moved from 6 down to 9. They pick up 2 picks. They essentially get the offensive line, which was suggested that they would go after it. If you read into all the various different outlets and mock drafts in the lead up. But I thought what was really encouraging was with the second pick, and again, something we spoke about on the set live on Thursday night into Friday morning was, would they go for the wide receiver? Well, they double down essentially on the wide receivers. They take in KC, Concepcion. You seem to be better at pronouncing than I am.
Concepcion.
Oh, there we go. And Denzel Boston in the second round, who was suggested as a potential late first round pick. So I think that's a really clever move because if the second round
literally waited all frickin' night on Friday to say more than a feeling. A team has more than a feeling for Denzel Boston. I had that in my pocket. I had to just throw it out at a random moment when Craig mentioned him because nobody picked him in the first round.
No, and he was touted as a first rounder, like you said there, and and you had your little, piece ready for you for the throughout the course of the night. But he goes in the second round.
Conor had jokes.
Conor tends to have a lot of jokes. Maybe people don't see it all the time, but we do. If he flourishes in the second round, they're going to take the pressure off the wide receiver in the first round, because people won't be talking about a wide receiver having a really dominant season from a first round perspective. We talk about this great second round that could have been a first rounder, or if KC has a really strong start to a season to his career in the NFL, and Boston doesn't hit the ground running, they'll be talking about KC. I think it's a really clever move. And the other one which I really liked was, bearing in mind that McNeil Warren was suggested also as a first round candidate, to see them move up in the second round to get him. I think that's like another master stroke. And then third round, into the fifth round, they take 2 offensive line guys. So I think they're doubling down there, hoping that one of them is another part of the key piece, which will be to protect whichever quarterback it is, because we've spoke about during the night. Is it going to be Shador? Is it going to be Deshaun Watson if he's recovered from his long-term injury? I just feel like the Browns have done a lot. They've done a lot last year. You spoke about it last time around how successful, despite the record, how successful the draft picks were last year. It looks like they've done a great job this year. I hope in a roundabout way it actually does return in results, because sometimes you can have these players who individually have great seasons. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win a lot of games.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead into a later segment, and I'll opt out of that. I'll recuse myself when we get around to our most intriguing draft story, because for me it was the Browns, our most intriguing pick. I just thought, yet again, to your point, that they seem to have a really good draft. Like, the intrigue for me is, can they put it all together without a quarterback, which is kind of a big flaw in the otherwise excellent plan. As you say, Andrew Berry has kind of done I heard Conor Orr kind of amusingly, but not necessarily too far from the truth, ripping Howie Roseman, saying all he does is literally just take the best player available on Mel Kiper's big board, and everybody gives him all this credit for it. It's because other GMs generally don't know what they're doing that he looks like a genius. Like, the Browns have done sensible things over the past 2 seasons. They picked up a lot of good players. Like, they nailed pick after pick last year. If you separate out, as we were saying on Thursday night, Friday morning, the whole Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders kind of question mark. Like Fannin was a great pick at tight end. Schlesinger obviously was defensive rookie of the year. Quinshon Judkins lit the place up as their running back selected in the draft last year. Bang, bang, bang. They stack a second successful draft here. They're basically the Seahawks without Sam Darnold. So I am intrigued to see how they'll go in the season ahead. But I'll skip back into my favorite draft story, which also technically involves the Cleveland Browns here. Stay with me, because Drew Aller, who was selected by the Steelers in a later round from Penn State, is a quarterback, but a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan. And you could see a great clip of him with his family where he's kind of in a bit of a quandary as to whether he should put the Steelers cap on or not. I love that loyalty to the team he supported over and above the team that's going to pay him a lot of money, even if he ends up sitting on the bench and we never see him. Also, I could slip that one into the intriguing category, considering the Steelers still haven't re-signed Aaron Rodgers yet, and we don't know whether Drew Aller might actually end up starting games for them this season. But I digress. Craig Rigdon, your favourite pick or favourite draft story of the night?
I might double dip as well here, because I've just thought of a moment, and in fact, I'll start off with the moment, and it's the moment that always gets me every single draft when we get across the Saturday, and I'm going to touch on the Saturday a bit later with something else. Is there anything better than watching Run Rich Run, and just the work that he does for St Jude's Hospital, and watching a man in a suit run a 40-yard dash at whatever time it is, probably still faster than some of us could muster. And the fact that he's now raised like 7 million across all the bits that he's done is it's always just a heartwarming part of the entire draft weekend when we get to see that. Favorite pick, I was banging the table for this on Thursday night, and when Reuben Bain Jr. dropped down to the Bucks, and Connor, you were speaking to Bruce Arians literally less than a month ago about the Todd Bowles defense and how they'd kind of fallen away a little bit and they needed to get back to basics. And one of those things that they needed to do was pick up that pass rusher that dominates on the line of scrimmage. He could be what's considered the steal of the draft by the end of this. You know, Bain was touted as a potential top 2 pick at one point. He was then pushed aside by the Reese Bailey argument that went on for a little while, but still was being discussed in that top 10 range. You know, there are people who were concerned about the arm length. The Buccaneers didn't overthink that. They took a violent pass rusher, 9.5 sacks, 15.5 tackles for loss. You know, he was first consensus.
Is he girthy though?
He could be girthy.
Got the girth.
He could.
Speaking of which, sorry now to jump in on you, Craig, but look, this is what I do. You know me well enough at this point. Was a lot intrigued by the whole Reuben Bain like short arm thing. Like I didn't realize what the metrics when we were discussing arm length, what was in question. Really. So he's got 31 and 1 3/8 arms, length arms, 31 and 1/8 inch arms, if I can get the sentence out, which is very short by NFL standards. So I was comparing my own arm length to NFL standards. I have 36-inch arms, which is elite arm length for an O-lineman. That's about the only thing that puts me in the NFL elite category, but I'm taking it. Got them long orangutan arms. They nearly scratch on the floor when I'm walking them, like King Louis from the Jungle Book over here.
Oh God, I think we all need to now measure arm length. To be fair, you jumped in just as unfinished there. You know, I just think for the Bucks it made the most sense. It seemed like every team that needed an edge rusher, I was either pounding the table for Bain or Mesidor as we went, or Fulk as we were going on. So I was on the pass rush train on Thursday night, and it was just nice to see Bain go somewhere where I think he's genuinely needed.
Kieran, before we get to your favourite pick or favourite draft story, I know you were going to make a point about the fact that the Browns had 3 first-round draft picks. Of course, our 2 first-round draft picks is because of the Travis Hunter trade with the Jags from last year.
Right, and if you think back, I mean, it looked like the Jags had done all the work and kind of being the winner in that particular trade. But, you know, something that we're not really used to seeing is the Browns being smart. And they actually, when they made that decision last year and they kind of stockpiled some draft picks, now, I mean, out of that, they get the KC Concepcion deal. And this may turn out, and we've seen that Hunter didn't exactly, you know, start a lot of games last year in Jacksonville. He's still a kind of a reclamation project. So it's fair to say that the Browns came out of that a little bit better than the Jaguars. And again, the Jaguars, you look around various grades, it's throwing these grades out for draft is it's tough work right now. I mean, I think they got a D grade purely for the fact that they didn't have as many, top round picks that other teams did. But I think over time it may prove that the Browns get the better of that deal, giving up some of those picks to trade down and let the Jags get Travis Hunter. So let's watch that in the next year or two, see how that transpires, see how Concepcion, the A&M wide receiver, turns out in Cleveland. My pick was Craig actually stole my thunder. I picked Bain as well. Watched pretty much every Miami game last year. When Miami plays down here, it's box office. There's a huge Hurricane fan club, obviously, around the state. And between him and Messidor, there you go. Just between him and Messidor, just electric players. I think when you think about the pick that the Bucs made, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago in what these teams needed for the draft. And what do the Bucs need? They needed somebody who could stop the run. They needed somebody who could make sacks. They needed somebody who could be a disruptor. Think about all those games that the Bucs shipped dozens of points last year and how they could have turned their season around and arrested that long losing streak that they had that ultimately led to them missing the playoffs. And a player like Bain comes in, and we see that Levante David has moved on. Vita Vea's probably got a couple.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Years left, so they're going to look for a new kind of franchise figure, and I think Bain is that guy. Ferocious player, like Craig said, electric. A lot of fun watching him and Messidor on the edge, and they almost took Indiana to the brink in the championship game in January. So really excited to see what he does. I'll give a kind of honorable mention also to Jadarian Price, the Notre Dame running back who got no shine at all. Jeremiah Love took all the shine. Equally talented running back. That was a really great. The fact that he fell to the Seahawks is a huge bonus for them.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Ben was there on the night. Obviously, produced a live show, and Ben was absolutely thrilled with that pick. That was the player he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite thunder and light with Notre Dame last year, but Price in his own right is an absolutely electric player. Obviously, Love took all the headlines with his receiving abilities too, but Price can be a very, very serviceable running back in the league, and he's probably slotted to start. Pretty much at the start of the season. He's going to be a really great addition to their run game. So I like that pick too.
Well, let's snake back to you, Kieran, because you got screwed by having to go last, which there's always a chance that someone else is going to steal your thunder. So biggest or most questionable draft pick for you?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious based on the discussions we had when it happened was the Ty Simpson deal. I'm really, as somebody who watched pretty much all Bama's games last year and watched them capitulate to Georgia in the SEC championship game, I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass in the Indiana game because he was injured for most of it. But I just listen. Body language says a huge amount, and you could see the interactions between Les Snead and McVay. Obviously not happy with that high of a pick. I mean, I just don't see the sense in it, especially with the quarterback class that's coming out in 2027. I feel like they could have held fire. Were they spooked about Stafford's back last year? Were they worried about we got to get somebody, just in case the unthinkable happens and maybe panicked a little bit? But he's not a great, decent arm. He's kind of a meh quarterback. He's not overly big. He's not got a great arm.
Is he world class? Is he world class, Kieran?
He's not world class. I mean, he's paired with he's been paired with some phenomenal athletes at Bama. I mean, Jeremy Bernard last year, but he's everything about him is kind of vanilla. It's kind of bland. He's got an average arm, average build, average size. I mean, he rushed for 93 yards on 90 attempts. 93 rushing yards on 90 attempts. That's astounding. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, that just stood out to me when I was doing some research. So that's kind of the standout thing for me for him. I mean, he had some great numbers between touchdowns and
you could actually fall forward 90 times for more yards than that.
Yeah, and what's crazy is he had 2 rushing yards last season. I mean, he put up big yard. Listen, he put up 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 5 picks. Again, you're playing in a fairly competitive SEC, but I just feel like the Rams really reached, and I think they could have done so much more. There were so many more areas they could have addressed than quarterback. And I know there wasn't. Listen, a lot of LSU quarterback Nussmeier, I think, went in the 6th round or the 7th round. So there wasn't a lot of talent, like we already discussed with quarterbacks. Did Les Snead did he get spooked, and was he just reaching and trying to just plug a hole? And we're not going to talk about the relationship with the family. That's that we won't get into that. But I just don't understand that pick. I would, if they were going to go quarterback with that pick, I would have picked a different quarterback. Maybe Klubnik that went to the Jets, or maybe Drew Aller even. So it's confusing for me.
Yeah, this is my most questionable one as well. And from an organizational standpoint, as I said on I see the logic in taking a quarterback with this pick. We'll reserve judgment, and we'll see whether Ty Simpson turns out to be the right guy to pick at 13 overall. Even though Sean McVay was clearly, and he had to row back on this one, but clearly not happy, not one bit happy about it when he was sitting beside Les Snead at the press conference after the first round. I can see how you do need to fix the roof while the sun is shining, and you don't. GM and the coach, you hope will be in lockstep 90% of the time, but it's not the GM's job to be in lockstep with the coach all the time. The GM has to think in terms of the overall longitudinal health of the franchise. Head coach is going to be focused on winning now, and if you strike the right balance between the two, and if there's the right level of tension, that's a great thing for your franchise. I do think though that it's a big claim for Les Snead to stake, because if the Rams do not win the Super Bowl in the upcoming season or the following season, and the Stafford window closes without another Lombardi, or at least them getting to the big show, it all comes back on Snead. Why did you pick a quarterback with the number 13 pick, the highest pick you were likely to have for some time if things were going to go the way you thought they were going to go, when you could have put one more weapon around Matthew Stafford to go and try and win a Super Bowl when they came so close the previous year? So I think he's leaving a huge Ty Simpson-sized hostage to fortune there, and we shall see whether that pans out. Craig, your most questionable pick.
I mean, could you look? You can't look anywhere other than the Ty Simpson thing. It's just so early. And it really just didn't make a lot of sense. I won't go into it too much because obviously you two have touched on it as well. I can't remember his name. I don't have it in front of me. Kieran might be able to help me, but is it Rutledge, the guard that the Texans took? I mean, man, that was a reach as well. And they traded up to go for that, and then decided to go for a guard that was about 3rd or 4th, maybe even lower on a lot of people's boards. So that one's questionable as well. But you genuinely can't ask this question without the answer being Ty Simpson. Brian,
you have another answer to that question?
I do, but I'd like to make a point on the Ty Simpson piece. I want to choke here into a mock draft scenario. Who would you have? I'm not necessarily agreeing with the Rams. I'd love to know who you would have thought, or who you would have expected. And I'm not saying Ty Lemon because that was, or McCoy Lemon because that was too obvious. Where would they have gone elsewhere? What would have been your pick at 13? Bearing in mind where the board was falling at that stage. Sorry, Connor, don't be taking over as host. Just be interesting to hear on the thoughts.
Well, I mean, we already mentioned
based on what they need. Where do you think you should end?
I mean, we could have talked about Jadarian Price. I mean, that could have been a pick. I mean, he dropped a little bit, but I mean, that could have been somebody that could have helped them out a lot. I just don't. It's like we've all discussed. I mean, if they didn't take quarterback, who knows? I mean, they could have taken Stowers that went later on.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have taken another tight end.
Yeah, the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you make these questionable,
Sadiq's still on the board at that stage.
He was.
No, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, was he?
No, yeah,
I think he was, because I remember saying, just throwing it out there, if they don't take Lemon, who would they take? And I said, well, why wouldn't they take Sadiq?
Yeah, I mean, Jets were 15th or 16th, so he was still on the board.
I mean, we see what happened with Fontenot a couple of years ago when you made a questionable quarterback decision. He's not there anymore, so it's risky, really from Les.
Connor, I do have another one. I'm not going to jump on the Ty Simpson bandwagon. I'm going to go on the Caleb Banks bandwagon, the pick by the Vikings defensive tackle, because 2024 he had a season-ending injury, which led to him only playing 3 games in 2025. And then after the combine, he then had to go have another operation. three major operations over the course of the last 3 years, and where we were convinced they were going to take the manner in which the Bears took, and it seemed like the right fit there because Harrison Smith's coming to the back end of his career, and Kieran might know better than us that probably the upward trajectory of that player. Yeah, if he's fit, he's probably a great defensive tackle. There wasn't a lot of them to go around in terms of at that level, which probably led to why the Bengals took that move with the Giants. But for a guy to be coming off 3 serious injury and it's continuous years, I thought that was a bit of a stretch for the Vikings to go up there. And they needed the defense tackle. I get it. But if you're looking at the red flags, I mean, not back-to-back injury seasons, 3, or 2.5, and an injury after the combine, that kind of scares me.
Brian, stay on the clock there. Your least favorite. Sorry, Kieran, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, a lot of these big dudes, I mean, whether it's D-line or O-line, they all have little things going on, whether it's knee. I mean, think about the big dudes you see up the front. They all have knee braces. They're all one twist or turn away from that thing getting blown out. Backs, we talked about Maui Noah with his back. So with Banks, I've heard some stuff that it's not as serious, and some people are blown out of proportion. But again, that could be people on his ends trying to gas him up before the draft. So it's hard to say. It's hard to see which one is the reality.
These guys are piling, like, to your point, it's a good point. These guys are piling like 8,000 plus calories on a day. It's not a natural amount of weight to have on a frame, no matter how big you are. There's a lot of things that can go wrong there. Knees, ankles, all the joints, all the soft tissue, like they all end up with lots of them. Yeah, that's a good one, Brian. Like your least favorite pick, then, if we can move on to
that. I would say least favorite pick, but concern. I just thought Proctor again. We're talking about players and whether they were picked too high. And again, I suppose over the course of time, you'll come out in the wash when we started watching these players. Bearing in mind the nature of what the Dolphins need, and people are quite high on the Dolphins selection, but I thought Proctor at 13 was a bit of a stretch. Bearing in mind he was been suggested further down the board, but then Kieran did have him in his top 10, so maybe we were missing the trick there. Maybe Kieran be right, but general consensus since then is that that's too big of a reach. Bearing in mind the Dolphins had so many other players of need that they should have went elsewhere in that opening pick.
Craig, your least favorite pick?
I've got one that stings on 2 levels, and it's a least favorite pick for the Giants because it's Makai Lemon to the Eagles, and if it works out for him, then it directly affects us.
My one. That was my
one. Because we're guaranteed to play them twice a year, but it's the fit. That's where the questions start for me, and that's why it's my least favorite pick from a generalized area. Lemon does his best work through the middle, 1,156 yards, 11 touchdowns, incredible numbers for last year for somebody who is 5'11". Jalen Hurts doesn't have the middle of the field on his comfort zone sheet. Like, he is an outside kind of man. He does not like the middle of the field. He doesn't throw there, whether that's schematic or whether that's like a personal thing that he just doesn't trust himself over that. He can play the bombs down the sides, and, Makai Lemon can line up there at times, but he's predominantly a middle of the field kind of guy. And Hurts prefers bigger receivers, big catch radius. And like I said, Lemon's 5'11" and short arms. So it just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I was going to pick that for a slightly different reason. I also toyed with whether I'd pick Jeremiah Love because I just hate that for him. I hate that he's going to the Cardinals. There was so many other places that it would have been lovely to see him land, and we would have all got the benefit of it. But let's hope that it works out for both sides, because we want to see good football played by good football players. But yeah, Lemon for me it was more on the line of, why are we letting the Eagles do this every year? I mean, we'll see what happens with the Steelers, who were on the phone to Makai Lemon while the Eagles were trading up for him, and that provided a great moment from the draft. And there was a question as to whether the Steelers should have been on the phone to him at all, and the NFL were a little bit squirrely in answering that one afterwards. But I mean, people give out about, Howie Roseman, he's such a master of the draft. Well, somebody made that trade. Like, why are we letting the Eagles do that? It ends up benefiting them all the time. But more power to him, I suppose, for pulling it off. Kieran.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be too overly original here, but the love pick to Arizona. I feel bad for the kid. I mean, listen, he's going to be playing in a great stadium, beautiful weather, but just it's very similar to the Genty situation from last year. I mean, you want the kid to succeed. I mean, I love watching him at Notre Dame, all the tools, fabulous receiver as well, and he's going to the Cardinals. And I'll say this: he's got a couple of weapons around him. So between Harrison, we'll see how it works out. I just fear from behind that O-line that's going to need a lot of help. oh, it's gonna be tough for him. So I wasn't a big fan of it. Plus the fact that my kid wanted Love to go to the Giants, and he was crestfallen when he went to the Cardinals. So that kind of annoyed me too. So he kind of didn't run away, but he wasn't too happy with that pick.
Spring is packed patios, parties, wedding weekends, and RK Zero Proof keeps you in the mix without the morning after regret. As the original Zero Proof Spirits brand, RK's Warm Molecule gives you that real deal burn of whiskey or tequila with none of the alcohol. 0 calories, 0 sugar, and a whole lot of freedom to enjoy the moment. Sip smarter this season at rkzeroproof.com.